The galaxy had long dismissed Earth as a relic, a world of rusted ship hulls, scrapyards sprawling across orbital platforms, and forgotten fleets decaying in the shadows of moons. To the Galactic Council, Earth was a backwater society, known for patchwork vessels held together by welded dreams rather than precision. But the scrapyards hid secrets. And when the stars burned with war once more, those secrets would awaken. The void around Earth was not empty. It was haunted. From the orbital ring that wrapped the planet like a crown of iron, one could look out and see them drifting, rusted hulks, forgotten battleships, shattered frigates, freighters hollowed of purpose. They turned slowly in the darkness, ancient scars catching the sun, reminders of wars too old for the young to remember. To outsiders, it was a graveyard. To Earth, it was memory. To a few, it was opportunity. Admiral Jonah Rourke stood at the edge of the ring's observation deck, hands clasped behind his back, boots planted with soldierly defiance. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, a face carved by decades of hard service, eyes lined with the weight of too many battles survived. He watched as a derelict cruiser rotated lazily, its hull pitted and blackened from a fire that had burned a century ago. A Dominion insignia was still faintly visible across its shattered prow, as if mocking him. "They think we're weak because we live among the dead," Rourke muttered. His voice was low, gravel rolling over stone. "Let them think it. Corpses can rise." The deck behind him trembled. The sound of construction carried through the steel, the pounding of hammers, the shriek of welding arcs, the hum of engines being born. What the galaxy thought was ruin was, in truth, a forge. Beneath the orbital ring stretched the fleet assembly yards, an industrial labyrinth built into and around the drifting bones of old warships. Sparks showered the void as skeletal frames were refitted with fresh alloy. Dead engines were gutted and replaced with cores that pulsed with unnatural blue light. Human engineers swarmed like ants across the hulls, welding, sealing, building. For generations, Earth had scavenged what others discarded. Every wreck towed from forgotten battlefields, every fragment purchased from smugglers, every alien technology secretly dissected in underground labs, they had all ended up here, buried beneath rust and steel. Now, they were being reborn. It had begun a year ago, with the ultimatum. The Zirith Dominion, vast and merciless, had sent its envoys to Earth. Their words still echoed in Rourke's mind. A scrapyard species, they had called humanity. Unworthy of sovereignty, unworthy of the stars. You will dismantle your fleets, surrender your stations, and kneel. The Galactic Council had not protested. To them, Earth was little more than a curiosity, a people too stubborn to die out, too irrelevant to matter. A scrapyard world. A junk heap floating in the void. But the Dominion had miscalculated. Earth had answered with silence. Its borders sealed. Its comms cut. Its scrapyards, once idle, had awakened with furious purpose. Captain Alara Voss stood inside the belly of that awakening. The air of her ship smelled of ozone and new-forged steel, sharp and electric. She strode down the pristine corridors of the ESS Revenant, boots ringing against metal so polished it almost glowed. She was young compared to Rourke, but her eyes carried the same fire. A fire fed by years of insult, of being looked down upon, of carrying the weight of a people deemed lesser. The Revenant was humanity's first true answer to the Dominion. Unlike the patched freighters and jury-rigged destroyers of Earth's past, it was purpose-built for war. Its engines were reverse-engineered from alien singularity drives. Its weapons included railguns capable of punching through kilometer-thick armor and plasma scythes that could shear ships in half. Every piece of scavenged knowledge Earth had stolen was folded into its design. Ilara paused at the forward viewport, where the stars stretched endless and cold. The scrapyard loomed outside, its hulks drifting like tombstones. But now, threaded among them, sleek new silhouettes took shape. "Status report," she ordered, voice crisp. Her chief engineer, a grizzled man with grease streaked across his cheek, snapped a salute. Quantum railguns charged, Captain. Singularity drive stable at 87%. Defensive matrix holding. Ilara allowed herself the faintest smile. Then we're ready. Ready for what, she did not say. Because the truth was, they all knew. Whispers had begun to creep through the stars. Traders spoke of ghost ships prowling Earth's borders. Smugglers swore entire convoys had vanished, devoured by black warships that left no survivors. The Dominion dismissed them as superstition. Scrap cannot kill, they mocked. But the rumors grew. And the scrapyard stirred. On the orbital ring, Rourke watched as one of the new vessels drifted free of its moorings. Its hull was painted in matte black, angular, sharp, swallowing the starlight around it. Not a resurrection, no, this was a predator cloaked in the bones of the dead. The old admiral's lips tightened into a grim smile. Let them come, he whispered. Let them see what the graveyard has birthed. Far away, beyond Sol's Edge, Dominion fleets prepared their invasion. Their commanders scoffed at the notion of resistance. Earth, to them, was already ash. But they had forgotten what scrap meant to humanity. Scrap was survival. Scrap was history. Scrap was the art of turning nothing into something unstoppable. The Dominion thought Earth's scrapyard was a graveyard. They would soon learn it was a forge. And from this forge, the Black Armada was about to rise. The Dominion came with fire. Their invasion fleet shimmered across the void like a tide of crystal and flame. Dozens of capital ships, each a floating cathedral of war. Hundreds of frigates and destroyers, wings of interceptors glimmering like shards of glass. They surged toward Sol with the certainty of predators, convinced they were delivering the final strike to a scavenger race too stubborn to kneel. From the flagship of the Dominion fleet, Grand Marshal Kareth gazed at Earth's orbit with disdain. His species had ruled for centuries, their crystalline hulls unbroken by rivals. He expected resistance, perhaps a ragged formation of obsolete ships clinging to life. Instead, he saw nothing but silence and ruin. The graveyard of Earth. Thousands of rusting carcasses drifted there, hulks and wrecks, their surfaces scarred by time, their bellies hollowed by scavengers. The humans had made their home in a junkyard, clinging to debris as rats might cling to a sewer. Kareth allowed himself a cold smile. Pathetic, he sneered. End it quickly. Orders rippled through the Dominion fleet. Weapons charged, energy beams primed. Soon the scrapyard would be vaporized, its fragments joining the debris already choking the system. Then, the graveyard moved. At first, it was subtle. A shiver, a shift. One of the hulks, a gutted dreadnought, seemed to rotate with sudden purpose. A freighter's hull split open not from decay but from hidden clamps releasing. Engines thought long dead, ignited in bursts of blinding blue. The Dominion scanners shrieked confusion. Power signatures flared where there should have been none. Heat blooms blossomed like stars. Then the shadows peeled away. From the skeletal frames of forgotten ships, titans emerged, sleek, angular, predatory. Hulls black as midnight, swallowing light. Their surfaces pulsed with energy patterns unfamiliar to Dominion eyes, hybrids of human ingenuity and stolen alien brilliance. The graveyard was no graveyard at all. It was a forge. And what it had forged was awake. The first salvo came without warning. Railgun slugs, invisible in their speed, tore through the Dominion vanguard. A destroyer erupted into molten fragments. Plasma scythes carved across enemy formations, slicing crystal hulls open like flesh. Singularity torpedoes detonated in the heart of a carrier group, collapsing their ships into swirling knots of broken space. The void lit with fire. Admiral Rourke's voice thundered across the Black Armada's comms, raw with defiance. For every insult we've endured, for every life they've stolen, for every time they laughed at us, today, humanity answers. The ESS Revenant surged to the front, its hull gleaming with predatory hunger. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge, her jaw clenched, her eyes unflinching. "Target that flagship formation," she ordered. Her crew obeyed without hesitation. Railguns spat fury, shredding frigates to dust. Plasma lances gutted a cruiser, leaving it spinning helplessly before detonating in a blossom of fire. Ilara's lips pressed into a thin line. Each kill was not satisfaction, it was necessity. Across the void, Grand Marshal Caratha's smug certainty fractured. "What are these ships?" he demanded. His officers scrambled, their crystalline armor reflecting the glow of burning comrades. Reports crackled, alien tech readings, impossible energy outputs, weapons they had never catalogued. The Dominion had come expecting rust. They faced predators instead. "Regroup," Carath barked. "Crush them. They cannot stand against our numbers." He was right about one thing: numbers. For every Dominion ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward. The battle became a storm of fire and chaos. On the Revenant, alarms blared. Shields flared and buckled under the onslaught. Ilara gripped the railing, steadying herself as the deck shook violently. "Damage to portside plating," her engineer shouted. "Shields at 40%. "Hold the line," Ilara snapped. Her voice was steel. "If we break, Earth falls. There is no retreat." Her crew steadied. They knew the truth. The Dominion outnumbered them, outweighed them, outgunned them. But they also knew something else: the Black Armada was born from defiance, not fear. For days, the battle raged. Skirmishes flared across the system, each clash a storm of debris and flame. Dominion arrogance gave way to grim determination, but still, they could not comprehend how Earth's scrapyards had birthed such monsters. The answer was in every weapon fired. Every plasma blade was stolen knowledge reborn. Every railgun slug was vengeance honed into steel. Humanity had studied the wrecks of 1,000 alien wars and turned them into a language the galaxy had never spoken before. Still, the cost was staggering. In the command hub of the orbital ring, Admiral Rourke read casualty reports with a face carved from stone. His fleet bled. Dozens of ships gone, thousands of lives extinguished. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, harder now, more haunted. "We bleed," he murmured to himself. "But so do they. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy bleeds with us." Far from Sol, whispers spread. Merchant captains whispered of Dominion fleets humiliated by humans. Slaves on distant worlds murmured of Earth's defiance, and for the first time in living memory, hope sparked in their eyes. The impossible was happening. The scrapyard world was standing against giants, and winning. But victory had a cost. Ilara walked the medical bay of the Revenant after one of the bloodiest engagements. Rows of soldiers lay wounded, groaning in pain. The air stank of antiseptic and blood. She stopped beside a young ensign, his uniform soaked crimson. He clutched her wrist weakly, eyes blazing despite the pain. "Don't stop, Captain," he whispered. "Make them fear us." Ilara squeezed his hand until his grip slackened. She turned away, her face hardening. The Dominion would pay. The Revenant returned to battle, rallying what ships remained. Around it, the Black Armada surged again, defiant even in exhaustion. But Ilara knew the truth, even if she never voiced it aloud. This was only the beginning. The Dominion was vast. What they had faced so far were fleets of arrogance, not the Empire's true hand. When that hand came, it would blot out the stars. And humanity would have to decide whether its scrapyard-born fleet could withstand the storm. The storm came without warning. For weeks the Black Armada had bloodied the Dominion, striking down fleets that should have been invincible. Across the galaxy, whispers grew into roars, resistance movements rising, enslaved species daring to hope, tyrants glancing over their shoulders. Earth, the scrapyard world, had become a symbol. The Dominion could not allow it. And so they gathered their true fleet. The first signs came as the stars dimmed. At the edge of Sol, space itself seemed to darken, blotting out constellations. Then the signals arrived, hundreds, then thousands of signatures bleeding onto human sensors. Battleships larger than cities. Carriers swollen with swarms of interceptors. Dreadnoughts whose weapons could crack planets. From the orbital ring, Admiral Rourke stared at the tactical map as red bled across the screen like a spreading infection. For the first time in decades of war, his hand trembled. "So this," he whispered, "is their true hand." Around him, officers whispered prayers, curses, or nothing at all. The Dominion had come not to conquer. They had come to erase. On the bridge of the ESS Revenant, Captain Alara Voss braced as the ship trembled under the weight of enemy presence. The Dominion fleet stretched beyond the horizon, filling the void with crystalline hulls that gleamed like cold fire. Her first officer's voice cracked. "Captain, there's too many." Alara's gaze never wavered. "Then we'll show them how humanity greets the impossible." The battle began with annihilation. Dominion super-dreadnoughts fired beams of raw energy that carved through space itself, vaporizing entire sectors of debris. A single blast erased 3 human frigates in a storm of molten metal. Carriers released swarms of interceptors, a glittering storm of death that swirled around the Black Armada like gnats around a flame. But humanity struck back. The Revenant surged forward, railguns thundering. Plasma lances speared through a Dominion cruiser, tearing it apart in a cascade of shrapnel. Singularity torpedoes collapsed a destroyer group into nothingness. Across the battlefield, Earth's warships moved with desperate ferocity, like wolves surrounded by lions. The void became fire. The orbital ring shuddered under bombardment. Civilian stations were evacuated in chaos, ships fleeing toward the inner planets. Earth itself glowed with the streaks of defensive batteries, its surface trembling with the echoes of war in orbit. Admiral Rourke's voice carried across every channel, calm but unyielding. "This is the line. If we fall, humanity falls. There will be no retreat. Stand with me." His words were not commands. They were vows. And across the fleet, voices answered, "For Earth." Hours bled into days. The battle raged, neither side relenting. The Black Armada fought with a fury born of survival, but attrition gnawed at them. One by one, Earth's ships were destroyed, leaving burning carcasses to drift in the void. On the Revenant, alarms screamed as shields collapsed. Fires raged across the lower decks. Alara stood at the helm, her knuckles white against the railing, refusing to abandon her post. "Captain, we've lost the port batteries," her weapons officer cried. "Then we fight with what remains," she snapped. Her engineer, face smeared with ash and blood, grinned despite it all. "If this is where we end, let's write it bright." Alara gave a single nod. Her voice lowered to a whisper, meant only for herself, "If legends must be born, let it be here." The Revenant plunged into the heart of the Dominion formation, carving a path of destruction. Each blast crippled another enemy ship, each maneuver daring fate itself. Around them, the surviving vessels of the Black Armada rallied, forming a spear of black iron against the storm. Still, the Dominion pressed closer. Their numbers seemed endless. Even the fiercest defiance could not turn back a tide that blotted out stars. And then, something stirred in the scrapyard. Deep in Earth's orbit, where the oldest hulks drifted, systems long hidden began to awaken. Engines thought too corroded to ever burn again flickered with ghostly light. Hulls patched with desperation hummed to life. Automated protocols, buried in secret by engineers who had sworn their lives to this final contingency, activated. The graveyard shifted once more. And from the shadows emerged the final wave of the Black Armada. They were not sleek like the Revenant, nor pristine like the firstborn. They were rough, scarred, monstrous, ships built from the last reserves of humanity's will. Some bore hulls centuries old, others cannibalized from dozens of wrecks. But every one of them burned with power. They surged into the battle with a roar that seemed to shake the stars. The Dominion faltered. Their formations broke as the final wave smashed into their flanks. Rust and brilliance combined into fury, overwhelming even their dreadnoughts. Beams of annihilation were answered with storms of scavenged weaponry. The scrapyard itself had risen to fight. The battle turned. One by one, Dominion warships fell. The Revenant, battered but unbroken, struck down the last of the enemy carriers. Admiral Rourke's flagship crippled a super-dreadnought, detonating it in a sunbright explosion that lit the void. Across the system, Dominion ships scattered, retreating in disbelief. The impossible had happened. Earth had stood. When silence finally returned to the void, wreckage drifted in endless fields, crystal shards of Dominion pride mingled with the broken bones of Earth's defenders. Thousands had died. The orbital ring was scarred. The Black Armada was bloodied nearly beyond recognition. But Earth still lived. On the bridge of the Revenant, Elara slumped into her chair, exhaustion pulling at her bones. The ship was crippled, its hull scarred, but it still drifted proudly among the wreckage. Her crew, battered yet alive, stared out at the stars in stunned silence. Then Admiral Rourke's voice came across the comms, rough with weariness but burning with iron. They called us a scrapyard world. They saw rust where we saw fire. Today, we showed them the truth. We are not scavengers. We are a forge. And from this forge, humanity has risen, not to kneel, but to command. His words rippled through the surviving fleet, through every listening ear across the galaxy. And in distant corners of the stars, enslaved peoples whispered the same word, the word that would haunt the Dominion for centuries to come. Earth. The scrapyards still drift in orbit, their hulks rusting slowly in the silence of space. But to those who gaze upon them now, they are not graves. They are monuments. Monuments to the day Earth's scrapyard became a fleet of next-gen dangerous warships. And burned its name into eternity.